Hello, dear students. Today we're going to speak about natural selection. Let's start. Survival of the fittest. Darwin had the idea that natural selection is the mechanism that drives evolution after reading an essay on the principle of population by Thomas Malthus, a clergyman and political economist. Malthus argued that in time the growth of human populations will outstrip the food supply and that this will lead to famine, pestilence, and war. Darwin applied this idea to populations of other animals and of plants. In his book on the origin of species, Darwin wrote, "There is no exception to the rule that every organic being naturally increases at so high a rate that if not destroyed, the earth would soon be covered by the progeny of a single pair." In spite of reproducing quickly, no single species has completely overrun the planet, although the populations of some species may be increasing at any one particular time. Darwin concluded that populations are kept in check by a struggle for existence as they compete for limited resources and are exposed to disease. Environmental factors that keep populations in check are called selection pressures or environmental resistances. These include disease, competition for resources such as food and a place in which to live, predation, lack of light, water, or oxygen, changes in temperature. Those organisms best suited to the environmental conditions, with characteristics that give them an advantage in the struggle for existence, will have the best chance of surviving and producing offspring. Their high natality gives them a selective advantage. On the other hand, those with unfavorable characteristics are more likely to die. Their high mortality gives them a selective disadvantage. Darwin argued that this difference in natality and mortality results in natural selection. As environmental conditions change, certain characteristics within a randomly varying population are favored and natural selection occurs. This has become known as the survival of the fittest. In evolution, fitness is defined as the ability of an organism to pass on its alleles to subsequent generations compared with other individuals of the same species. The fittest individual in a population is the one that produces the largest number of offspring that survive to reproduce themselves. Natural selection by survival of the fittest means that the genetic characteristics of a population gradually change from generation to generation in response to changes in the environment. As we shall see in the following spreads, natural selection affects the gene pool by increasing the frequency of alleles that give an advantage and reducing the frequency of alleles that give a disadvantage. 3 types of natural selection. Natural selection is not always a mechanism for change. There are 3 different types: stabilizing selection, directional selection, disruptive selection. These are 3 different ways in which natural selection acts on the phenotypes in a population. Typically, the frequency in the population of each phenotype has a normal distribution described by a bell-shaped curve. Stabilizing selection happens in an unchanging environment. Extremes of the phenotype range are selected against, leading to a reduction in variation. Stabilizing selection occurs in the natural selection of birth mass in humans. Directional selection favors one extreme of the phenotype range and results in a shift of the mean either to the right or to the left. This type of selection usually follows some kind of environmental change. The long neck of the giraffe is thought to have evolved in this way. Probably when food was in short supply, only the tallest individuals could reach enough food to survive. They passed on their genes to the next generation. Disruptive selection selects against intermediate phenotypes and favors those at the extremes. This leads to a bimodal distribution and two overlapping groups of phenotypes. If the two groups become unable to interbreed, then each population may give rise to a new species. Disruptive selection may have contributed to the evolution of Darwin's finches. Because there were few other birds to compete, finches with short, strong beaks had exclusive use of nuts as a food source, while those with long, slender beaks had almost exclusive use of insects. Those finches with an average unspecialized beak were more likely to have been in competition with other species of bird and would have reproduced less successfully. That is the end of our video session. Next time we're going to speak about artificial selection. Thank you for watching.